Hey guys, for today's movie review, I'm going to talk about the film Before Midnight. It is the third and final film in the Before Sunrise trilogy by director Richard Linklater. And this film, you guys, it's like I said, it's the third and final one. Jesse and Celine, who you're familiar with from the first two films, and I reviewed the first two films both on my Facebook page and my YouTube channel for those who want to check those out. Those were Before Sunrise and Before Sunset. Uh, in this film, you guys, we see Jesse and Celine 9 years after the events of Before Sunset, which was the second film in the franchise. And right away, we see Jesse and his son that he talked about from Before Sunset. He's older now. He's almost about to start high school. And he, he's about to go off to this. He's about to go back to the U.S. because he doesn't have the full custody rights and things of that nature. And we find out later on, and this is really it's not a spoiler because we see this throughout the trailer, that Jesse and Celine got married throughout the last time we last saw them. Throughout those 9 years, they've been married. They have two daughters, which are also shown in the trailer now. Two twin daughters. They're not in the film that much, but they're in the film, and they're basically on this like couples get together that it's couples from all over the place and they're there, and I think they invited Jesse and Celine because of these books that he's published. He actually has published more books since the second movie, and there's this time gap where Jesse and Celine have time to themselves. They don't have to worry about the two daughters. Jesse's son is now flying back home to the U.S. to the ex-wife that he had the kid with, and so now it's just Jesse and Celine by themselves. They even made reservations for this hotel room that someone that this get together has reserved for them. So at first, they think it's going to be this beautiful night. Nothing's going to distract them. They don't have to worry about kids. In some ways they can almost relive the before sunrise night where they first met each other and just kind of walk through Greece instead of Vienna like in the first film, and just kind of take it in for what it is, and it can just be the two of them enjoying themselves, having a good time, conversing with each other like what we've seen before with them. And basically, Richard Linklater gives us another Before Sunrise film that we're familiar with Jesse and Celine making conversation with each other. We see the passions and what works for them, and some potential downfall of some things that maybe they've struggled with over the past 9 years since we last saw them. So in Before Midnight, you guys, very well done film, really great conclusion. Um, I won't say too much, but I will say that it does go a much darker route than the first two films did. That's all I can say, really. And it was really well done. It's definitely wrapped up the series really well. It definitely added closure. I liked that they, recapped and retouched and like homaged and nodded at the things that happened within the first two films. So for the positives, you guys, this film was a much more unique experience than Before Sunset was. We get to see a it's just a more unique experience. They Richard Linklater executed this in a more interesting way. We get to see more couples this time around. We get to see the what else? We get to see kind of the negatives and the flaws of what it's not just about the goods of the relationship, it's also about the bads because they've been around for each other for the past 9 years. We kind of get to see some negative things that are happening between Jesse and Celine in this film. There's more dimension added into the film. It's definitely, like I said before, like it's not just this really cutesy positive romance film. There's actually some scenes in here that get really serious, and Jesse and Celine get really honest and serious with each other. And it's a very three-dimensional movie, and I think that's what's really clever about this third and final installment. We get to see more involvement with the kids that they have now, with the two daughters, in the kid that Jesse talked about in the second film. We also get to hear more about their family. You know, Jesse talks about like his parents and his grandparents and all that kind of stuff. They do touch upon that some more in this film through conversation, of course. So it's really cool that we could see a more kids and family side of their lives in this film. This film nods to parts one and two a lot. They talk about some stuff that they did in Before Sunrise a lot, and they kind of reflect upon it and what they would do differently today if they were to do it again. And same with part two. Celine's music life and her some things like her political life, the career she's pursuing. So if you've seen Before Sunrise and Before Sunset, you're probably going to catch on to a lot of things that they talked about and did within those first two films. This film is definitely another great representation of just how Jesse and Celine have grown as characters. How they're both, really great people with really talented people, as really talented skills, but they're also people that have quite a few flaws with themselves. They're not perfectly rounded people, even though there's a lot of great things to be said about them. There's also some flaws about them, and because of that, just like a real life couple, they got to work through and compromise something that will make them happier in the end for both of them. For negatives, you guys, I think overall this film is just not as fun as Before Sunrise. Before Sunrise, I think, is still my favorite film in this franchise, this trilogy. Before Sunrise was just, it was a really unique experience. It was original, it was fresh, and I think it was just the overall best out of all three of these. And just some of the conversation stuff I thought was the most interesting also. Some of these new couple characters, like if this couple get together, like I was talking about earlier in the film, where it's early on and Jesse and Celine are invited to this couples get together. Some of those new characters really are not that interesting. They're because we're so familiar with Jesse and Celine, we really want to have just more time for them to develop and seeing how they've grown. And because we've never seen any of these people around them in this table, we really don't care about these new characters because they just kind of came out of the blue. There's a few of them where it's just like, okay, that's a little interesting and stuff, but there's some where it's just like, I don't care about that couple at all. So some of the new characters in here are really not that interesting, and you almost kind of wonder what was the point of doing them to begin with. I think it's cool that they try to incorporate new characters into this franchise, but overall, it's just like I could have just used more Jesse and Celine time. I think that would have been more interesting. The darker direction might not be for everybody, specifically toward the end of the film where it gets much darker. Like I said before, I can't get into too much detail without spoiling some things. But it's really not going to be for everybody. But if you liked Before Sunrise and Before Sunset, it really shouldn't ruin it for you per se. But just to be forewarned, this is a much darker film than the first two films were, because we get to see both the positives and the negatives of how Jesse and Celine have grown as a couple and as a married couple since we last saw them. So overall, guys, I do give Before Midnight a 8.5 out of 10. It's a very well done film. It wrapped up everything perfectly. It did open a little bit for a fourth. It's one of those things where it didn't say, okay, well, that's the end. They can't do many more. But it's one of those things, too, where it's just like, they could do a fourth, but at the same time, it's like, what would they do for a fourth one? Uh, it's a great film. Like I said, it's just not quite Before Sunrise yet. There's a few things about it that I think keep it from being the next Before Sunrise, but I think it is a much better film than Before Sunset, which did have quite a few flaws. Uh, so it's a great sequel. It's a great wrap up to this franchise. If you liked the first two films, you're definitely going to like this one. So 8.5 out of 10 for me. It does have a limited release, so for those who don't live in the Madison area or don't have a Sundance cinema in your area, this may not be playing. But be on the look for this one that is playing, or if it reaches your Redbox at some point in the next few months. So Before Midnight, it's a great film, wrapped up perfectly, and make sure to check it out. It's really good.